Since its inception, television has been a breeding ground for translating movies into 30 to 60-minute programs. For every successful example, there are millions more that didn't quite make the cut. Shows that have been lost to the dustbins of history, and we're going to examine them. This is From Screen to Pilot. On December 24th, 1968, Disney The Love Bug raced to theaters, based on an earlier screenplay by Gordon Buford titled Boy Car Girl. It was part of a series of high-concept comedies that the studio was pumping out then, telling the story of a down-on-his-luck race car driver who discovers the vehicle he has just acquired has a mind of its own. The film was a smash hit, and the titular love bug Herbie became a star overnight. When you Google Herbie, the first thing you get is the movie Volkswagen. Need I say more? Disney didn't immediately capitalize on the success of Love Bug, but 3 more installments would follow, each with diminishing returns. Herbie Rides Again in 1974, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo in 1977, and Herbie Goes Bananas in 1980. The character would also be a staple at the parks and appear in numerous comics. After Herbie Goes Bananas, the Beetle would seemingly hang up its tires for good, only being brought out of a temporary sleep with 2005's Herbie Fully Loaded. But that wasn't the entire story. Oh no, don't worry, Herbie wasn't sent to the scrap heap just yet. In between intervening years of inactivity, following a successful re-airing of The Love Bug, Disney decided that the most logical place to take the car was where else but television. Premiering on March 17, 1982 on CBS. This is Herbie the Love Bug.
With the sing in his chassis, not very sleek, but he's bright and he's sassy. When you're with him, you better leave your cares behind. It's Herbie.
Herbie the Love Bug, the series, was born out of the cancellation of The Wonderful World of Disney by NBC in 1981. The program had been picked up by CBS, and Disney decided they wanted to return to the world of scripted television by way of a familiar brand. Originally an hour-long special, The Mouse House was persuaded by CBS to turn the initial pilot into 5 micro-movies, with each episode being structured in the style of a miniseries. It would air on the channel as a mid-season replacement. Dean Jones reprises his role as Herbie's owner Jim Douglas, who has left the race car driving business behind, having set up shop as a teacher at the faltering, ironically named Famous Driving School alongside his sole employee and partner, Bo Phillips. Phillips is played by Richard Paul. He is an enthusiastic money man, sort of the diametrical version of Buddy Hackett's goofy but wise Tennessee Waltz from the original Love Bug. In the first episode, things are so beggarly for the two of them, Bo is forced to take odd jobs on the side. When Herbie pulls Jim into a bank robbery against his volition, they rescue a divorcee named Susan, played by Patricia Hardy. Jim is instantly smitten with her, and the two strike up a relationship. Susan is a strong maternal type who wants a man she can trust. Her previous husband was also, coincidentally, a race car driver who abandoned the family in favor of fame. Her fear of a lack of commitment, playing a direct dichotomy with Jim's own unwillingness to leave behind the bachelor lifestyle. Although, I do have to wonder why he's so hesitant to move into a house that looks like that. Jim's kind of a dummy-dumb. Susan introduces Jim to her family. Her 2 sons, Robbie and Matthew, played by Douglas Emerson and Nikki Katt, are 2 rambunctious, impressionistic kids who immediately take a shine to Herbie. Robbie, in particular, begins to see him as not just a car, but as a friend. The relationship between the two is about pulling out your heartstrings as much as possible, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't find it kind of sweet. Jim also becomes acquainted with Susan's teenage daughter Julie, played by Claudia Wells, whom he agrees to take out for driving lessons. Julie comes swinging into this series as a defiant, firebrand teenager close to college age and going through adolescent mood swings. As it turns out, though, the cure for immaturity is an underdeveloped case of 10 minutes or less. The writers try their best to not overplay their target demographic, so Instead of embracing the pitfalls of being a teenager, they've created a sweet, good girl character that's about as wishy-washy as oatmeal. They make it appear as if she's done nothing wrong. I almost had to hand it to them. Jim is opposed by Susan's ex-boyfriend and former rival fiancé Randy, played by Larry Linville, an actor most famous for his role as Major Frank Burns in MASH. Randy is a slime bag, but he's a slime bag that I found myself pitying by the end. He's opposed to the idea of raising children. He'd be a terrible father.
I want a taco. I want an enchilada.
I want to kill myself.
Yet, he suffers from an inferiority complex. He might have money and a Mercedes. His mother owns the bank that was robbed. But what is money and a Mercedes? Will never have what the struggling, less wealthy, what he deems uncouth Rough Rider Jim has. Appreciation and a real, potential, loving family. Randy goes out of his way to blame Douglas for everything, and his stiff shirt self might have a point. A magical moving car swept his ex-fiancée off her feet. Perhaps it should have followed the advice of his mother, picked him up, and yanked him as far away from California as possible. The show refers to him as Uncle Randy, which almost strikes me as a practical joke, as if a man this low, loathsome, and jealousy-driven could be so caring. Herbie and Jim's relationship in the series is the equivalent of a father and his petulant bratty child. Jim regularly chides Herbie for his impulsive nature.
Well, Herbie, I hope you're satisfied. You have the honor of being the first juvenile delinquent in the family.
At one point, he even threatens to punch out his trunks. Whoa, man, I think after all of this, you need to go to a Car Anonymous meeting. That wheeler is driving you up a wall. Twice during the series, Jim is given the option to sell Herbie, but he refuses. He might be an old-fashioned, out-of-date, unpopular automobile, but he's his own old-fashioned, out-of-date automobile, with an aw shucks softy persona at heart, who just happens to have a hard steel exterior. In some ways, he has more chemistry with him than he does with his soon-to-be wife. Herbie retains all of his abilities from the movies. Credit here must be given to the SFX team. They do a great job of translating the effects to television. He cries windshield tears. When he dislikes somebody, he squirts them with oil. He drives at top speed in reverse, etc., etc. An additional effect exclusive to this series is Herbie's ability to perform musical themes. Now, that's just silly. A Beatle can't handle the strain of having the radio on. It'll go berserk. Per tradition of the series, the cars on set would get scraped and wrecked regularly. The studio offered cash to teenagers willing to part ways with their VWSs in the San Fernando Valley. To keep things a mystery, the Disney folks refused to name themselves. Who even were these people? Well, I'm about as puzzled as you are. Claudia Wells recalled that an estimated 5 to 6 Herbies would be used in total throughout the program, while Dean Jones remarked that the series became successful enough, it might help bring the Volkswagen Beetle, a then largely discontinued car, back to prominence again. As you can probably assume, no it didn't. The press at the time noted how little attention Herbie had in relation to the show. A mocking comedic article written by David Bianculli, a television critic, jokingly inferred that the car had such little vanity that it had been gasped, replaced by an imposter. Patricia Hardy, who played Susan, was a television staple, having starred in short-lived programs like Occasional Wife and the 1960s version of Blondie. Claudia Wells, who was her daughter Julie, later became famous for her role as Marty's girlfriend Jennifer in the original Back to the Future. Douglas Emerson, who played Robbie, later portrayed Scott on the first season of Beverly Hills 90210, while Nicky Katt, who played Matthew, would have a successful career as an older actor. Plenty of Disney and Herbie regulars would be involved with the show, including director Vincent McEvity, writers Don Nelson, Arthur Alsberg, and Don Tate, producer Kevin Corcoran, composer Frank Duvall, and makeup artist Robert J. Schiffer. TV's own Bill Bixby, who played the Dean Jones part in the Apple Dumpling Gang, also directed 2 episodes. The theme song, Herbie My Best Friend, would be performed by Dean Jones. Surprisingly, he doesn't do a bad job. A fun tidbit here regarding his musical abilities is that he was one of the original leads of Stephen Sondheim's company, but had to bow out after a month. Since the series ran for only 5 episodes, I'll do my best to provide a quick recap of each. Herbie the Matchmaker introduces Jim and Herbie's current situation, Jim's initial meeting with Susan, her family, and the villain of the show, the bitter rival Randy. A misunderstanding on the tracks causes a rift between Jim and Susan, leaving Cupid Herbie to have to set things right as he crashes the wedding between Susan and Randy. Hey Herb, what happened to respecting people's private parts? In Herbie to the Rescue, Jim, Robbie, and Matthew go out for a bonding fishing trip, which ends in disaster when Jim almost drowns trying to save the kids. Robbie and Matthew, feeling horrible, decide to run away from home as they quickly learn the terrifying truth about why you shouldn't set up base next to an abandoned area. Well, nobody said the wind was supposed to be friendly. Meanwhile, Randy returns, having hired a DMV employee to shut down Jim's school. After Herbie gunks Randy, the DMV deems the place unpolished and unsafe, and it's temporarily closed. Jim and Bo rescue the kids, the impossible odds have been achieved, and Randy's scheme backfires. He didn't consider legalities involved with running a frickin' business, despite co-owning a bank, resulting in him getting his predictable just desserts at the end. Herbie, you got the brain of a dolphin, the bravery of a lion, and the manners of a Neanderthal. Oh, and Jim proposes to Susan, but who cares about that? Been there, done that. My house is your house sees the return of Jim's old flame, Diane Darcy, who appears to have gotten a facial makeover and a hair dye. Randy throws a bachelor party for Jim, but it's a ruse to get Darcy intoxicated.
You okay?
As compared to who?
Well, congratulations. I hope you're happy with yourself. You've created a monster. Jim brings Darcy up to his pad. Susan arrives and catches the two together. She decides to get even by returning the advances of a romantic Italian racer named Sergio. It turns out Sergio is actually a charming snake with a great stereotypical Italiano persona. Susan has to learn this the hard way. Hey, remember when this was considered the height of comedy? Oh, groan.
I don't like it. I've never liked Italian food.
Bannable offense, Jim. The episode ends with Randy's scheme being foiled again, Jim and Susan reconciling over another race car track mix-up, this time involving Darcy being behind the wheel, and Sergio becoming Herbie's latest oil bladder victim. High art. Sergio was portrayed by Alejandro Rey, an Argentinian character actor, while Darcy was played by Andrea Howard, replacing Julie Summers from Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. Why they couldn't get the original actress back, I don't know. Shockers. There's very little out there that I could find about the show, but the writers are pulling from the all-expansive, ever-important Herbie lore, if you can call it that. Herbie the Best Man is the wedding episode. The preordained family goes to a practice nuptial where the minister is as nervous and unprepared as they are.
Now, you're the bride.
No.
No. I'm the bride. This is my daughter.
I'll have jokes that age well for 20. Randy returns. Handkerchief, please. He's hired a supremely intelligent private eye to find dirt on Jim. Jim is so clean, though, he could have a sign imprinted on him that reads shiny and perfect, and nobody would care to ask why.
I wish my daughter would bring a guy like this home instead of the bum he's been running around with, you know what I mean?
Wait a minute. This guy's a Columbo wannabe. Word to the wise, don't remind me of a better program. Randy attempts to steal Herbie, first by force. Then, when that doesn't work, in a desperate plea for great showmanship, he dresses up as a woman. Though he's less convincing looking than Martin Lawrence in Big Mama's house, the cops still initially fall for a stint disguise. With officers like this, who needs criminals?
But I assure you, I have not been drinking, no.
Herbie is captured for real and replaced with a paint-over imposter loaded with a stink bomb. He is sent to the junkyard to be smashed into a million pieces as Jim gets a hold of the decoy. Imagine Herbie whiffing cigarettes. He would have gone from fast to furious. Jim gets pulled over by the cops and he has to rescue Herbie, which delays his chances of making it to the wedding on time. Don't worry though, the two hightail out of there. The minister is abducted against his free will and they give chase to Randy and the family. Jim and Susan tie the knot as the desperate Randy is left behind to wallow in the dust of his own douchebaggery. Somehow, he remains the most interesting character.
My best man had the ring.
Whoa, you're gonna stab Bo in the heart like that? The series draws to a close with calling Dr. Herbie. Susan decides she wants a station wagon. Jim is forced to temporarily leave behind Herbie at the car dealership. The owner is a southern dandy wannabe named Wally, whose persona is about as authentic as his accent.
Don't worry about that little desert rat. I'll see to it he don't get swept away by the sanitation department.
Wally was played by comedian and actor George Lindsay, most famous for his role as Gomer Pyle's cousin on The Andy Griffith Show. Herbie destroys a costly fire hydrant and Wally becomes outraged, deciding to have him towed away to the impound as punishment. When Jim discovers Herbie behind bars, he learns he doesn't have enough money on hand. The abrasive, greedy, over-the-top warden is played by Dana Elcar, who might be best remembered for his role as Pete Thornton on MacGyver.
That's all you're thinking about, isn't it, Muriel? Home for dinner. Let me tell you something. I don't care if your meatloaf is burned to 2 crisps. Or your mother.
So, when are you two getting divorced? To make matters worse, Robbie has come down with an unidentified fever and has to be sent to the hospital overnight. A John Belushi do and an A's reject attempt to steal Herbie, but he escapes. Circumventing the warden's goons, he makes his way to the hospital to pay Robbie a visit. How nobody in this facility bothers to check their areas, considering what just happened, well, beats me. Guess the automobile is sharp.
You and me and Matthew and Julie and Mom at the other end. I didn't have enough room for Jim. He's on the other side.
Respect the vehicle, not the racer. The family comes to pick up Robbie the next morning. He mentions that Herbie paid him a visit, but it's tossed off as a wild, imaginative dream.
And he gave me a piece of cake. Chocolate layers.
Well, whatever you say, Robbie.
Jim Douglas, fugitive in 32 states for vandalization of cake. Jim gets the money back to pay for Herbie. The warden's response is what you'd expect, and the family gives one last cheer as the credits roll. And that was Herbie the Love Bug, the series. Despite Disney's best efforts, the show was not a success. According to Nielsen, Herbie the Love Bug finished a paltry 66 in the ratings. CBS decided not to renew it for an additional season. Reviews were not that kind either, but what do you expect? It's Herbie the Love Bug. It's not an Ozu film. Tom Strales of the Washington Post described the first episode as a pleasant change from the Randy Rubes and Smart Mouth Tots that inhabit most TV comedy shows, and said it was hardly without appeal. John J. O'Connor, writing for the New York Times, called it a soggy affair. Will anyone care? The biggest condemnation I could find was from Owen McNally of the Hartford Courant, who said the plot itself seems in dire need of a major tune-up. Car insults last a lifetime. Herbie the Love Bug was re-aired on the Disney Channel. It has not been released on DVD, nor is it available on Disney+. The only way you can currently watch it is through re-recordings on YouTube. Watching the show today, I can understand why Herbie didn't make the jump to television successfully. It's a program that suffers from a mood whiplash, a family dramedy that's regularly interrupted by the antics of a magical moving car and the style of a 1960s sitcom like Mr. Ed or My Mother the Car. Sure, the Herbie movies have always had elements of romance to them. They don't call him the Love Bug for nothing. But as a reminder, the last time we saw him, this was happening. The character may have been better served in animation. The rigid structure of television was just too ambitious of a format to bring him to. As is, he barely hits the steering wheel while running. Dean Jones would play Jim Douglas one more time in the 1997 TV movie version of The Love Bug with Bruce Campbell. But, well, that's a story for another day. Maybe. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to subscribe, share, and hit that like button. Also, check out my website, dansden.net. Anyway, see ya!